started now. So thank you everyone for coming along to Workstream 2. My name's Asim. I am the Study High Regional Manager for Buckinghamshire and Berkshire. Again, just to welcome everyone, really, thank you so much for taking the time to come along today. Hope you found sort of the welcome interesting. And I think this work stream in particular will build on some of the bits that Sally was talking about, especially in terms of adult learners, and how we can try and engage a little bit more about adult learners, how we can try and find out. I think Sally was talking about building an evidence base, so it's obviously an opportunity for us to hopefully have a little bit of a discussion and a bit more conversation and sort of sharing of practice, I suppose, around some of those bits and pieces. Just to welcome our two panelists today. So first we'll have Gemma Standen, who's a Widening Participation Officer for mature students at UEA, and I'm sure will provide lots of insight and information in terms of partnerships and access partnerships to adult learners into HE. Gemma's going to be talking and delivering a presentation which will explore partnership approaches to supporting access to higher education in the local area, and the impact on admissions and confidence in learners providing progression onto UEA courses. So again, I think that would be really, really useful, and some of again, what Sally was talking about earlier would be really useful to have a little bit more of an insight and understanding of the life cycle approaches for mature learners and how that might be slightly different for mature learners versus our sort of traditional learners. And we also have Rebecca Middleton, who's a data and evaluation analyst at neaco, one of the NCOT partnerships, and is based at the University of Cambridge. Rebecca will be talking about the analysis of some of the UniConnect annual surveys in 2020, telling us about the future plans and attitudes towards HE for the adult learners. And again, I'm sure will give us a little bit more of an insight and an understanding about mature learners studying FE courses in across East Anglia, and using that data to develop an understanding of future plans and attitudes towards HE. So I think what we'll do is, without further ado, I'm going to introduce and ask Gemma to come along and present. We will have 15 minutes each for each of our panelists to present, and then if people, as before, happy to pop down any questions, any comments that they would like to make in the chat section, will ensure that they get to our panelists and hopefully be able to get those towards the end of the session. So I think what we'll do is we'll do 15 minutes per presentation, then we'll have 15 minutes towards the end for questions and answers and comments. So without further ado, Gemma.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Gem, and as Im has said, I work at the University of East Anglia. Let me just pull my screen up so I can share my presentation with you all. Excuse me. I could see it a moment ago, now I can't, which is just typical. Bear with.
Oh, we had it there for a second, Gemma.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. I'm just going to get that back up. Just so you guys are aware, just to save my my Wi-Fi network, I will be presenting with my camera turned off. So you can obviously hear the sort of main points of the presentation. But hopefully you can all see that okay. Asim, could you please confirm?
Absolutely. See it fine, hear you fine.
Hey, now on to the presentation. So thank you everyone for coming along to this session today. It's an absolute pleasure to present to you and provide you with some further context about our partnership offer that we have in place with access to higher education providers in the local area. So this session specifically is going to look at how our partnership has supported the adult learners from colleges onto courses, with a particular focus on our own. My role is a life cycle role, hence, I'm a widening participation officer. I work with people right through from essentially where they want to return to education through to them joining the university or going elsewhere. So as with most outreach members of staff, I am not necessarily always speaking to people about our own courses, but just about higher education quite generally. But for any of you who already work with adults, you may know that many will already have a specific institution in mind when they typically approach returning to education. So our partnership really has helped strengthen those types of things. So just to add a bit of context, really, my role was introduced in late 2018 to help support mature students across the life cycle, as I've just mentioned. I do have two specific targets relating to our access and participation plan for the university. The first is to increase our market share of mature students from the local area, with a focus on 3 providers that we work with in partnership, which I'll go on to in further detail throughout this presentation. The second target is to reduce the retention gap between older and younger students who are leaving their courses of learning. So it's a national thing that typically is a greater number of adult learners leaving over the younger counterparts within an educational setting, and UEA's picture doesn't look much different to that. Excuse me. Oh, I'm getting over freshers flu, so please do bear with me. Oh. So we have 3 colleges, as I've mentioned, who we work in partnership with. And as part of our offering, we offer information, advice and guidance for tutors, including support with ungraded elements of the higher education diploma. As part of this, we work really closely with CAVA, Cambridge Access Validation Agency, who validate the diplomas on behalf of the providers, so we can have real insight into the curriculum and how to support the colleges. There is a range of supporting talks that we offer throughout the academic year. So essentially we ask the colleges to book a minimum of 3 talks across each of their access groups, where we'll explore things like how to understand entry requirements, looking specifically at the access grades, level 2 qualifications such as GCSE or functional skills. We also talk about things like student finance and services available to help adult learners as well. We've created over the lockdown some individual support sessions for students who may have specific questions and concerns, and this has actually been a really useful aspect of our partnership with the students, because you find that many people may not want to ask in a group setting something that applies to them quite individually. So these sessions act as a really nice side part for people who want to come and find out a little bit more specifically about their own situations. In terms of campus experiences, I'm sure you can appreciate these are still very much new to returning to the normal world, and are COVID restriction permitted. We have our first campus experience next month, whereby we're inviting students onto campus with their tutors to come and explore, find out and take part in a subject-related session. Again, just to try and break down the barrier of being on a campus and making that sort of more second nature to the students. Now, the main part really of our partnership with the access to HE providers, and this is what the rest of my presentation is mostly going to focus on, is the reduced tariff that we have for students who are completing the access to higher education diplomas. Now, our reduced tariff or contextualised admission in this particular respect only applies to the 3 colleges that we are working in partnership with and are privy to the colleges taking part in our offer of activity throughout the academic year. Now, for students who do apply to UEA, and obviously there is no obligation to do so, they are offered a reduced grade of a pass in 45 level 3 credits with 30 at merit and a pass in 15. Now, students will get a guaranteed interview or audition on courses that may require them. For example, a lot of our health courses will have interviews. Some of our creative writing courses may require a portfolio and those types of things. So essentially, students who have applied from those backgrounds will get the automatic sort of guaranteed interview. And then after that point, if they are to meet the confines of the interview, they will then pass through with that reduced offer as well. There are caveats that apply to this offer. So, for example, we do ensure that all the level 2 qualifications are in place as well. Any other subject-specific pathways remain in place. And that, as I say, if there's a portfolio or a sample required for any relevant courses, that they are also submitted. Now, where it says subject to non-academic requirements for the courses as well, that can apply to things like IELTS and other requirements for particular competitive courses. And of course, there are exceptions here as well. For example, we can't include medicine, including with our pathway year course as part of this offer. And we also don't include social work because it's not ourselves that shortlist the students for that particular course. Now, we've found that this has increased our number of applications from students from these colleges. And interestingly, it's also increased the number of acceptances that we've had from our admissions departments as well. So the most surprising thing I think that we found, and probably one of the most interesting too, is that the average tariff points that we have achieved from the students who have submitted applications has increased quite substantially since we introduced the reduced offer. So in simple terms, our offer equates to 80 tariff points. And the average achievement last year saw an increase of 6 points. And this year, students have exceeded the entry offer by an average of 20 points, which is absolutely fantastic. It means that we're getting some fantastic students through the door, and they're attending our events and engaging with us throughout their transition and the welcome events and activities that we've recently put on as well. Some other happy accidents as well, well, not so much accidents, but just really positive factors as such, really. Since the colleges and the students have become familiar with myself, my colleagues going in and delivering, or being online and delivering and being that sort of friendly face, they have become more engaged with the activities that we offer as a university. So they're very, very keen to support each other. So many have signed up for our buddy scheme. They've set up a peer support network for mature students, which is a free group providing that peer support and social opportunities for students so they can network in a way that they all feel comfortable with. Well, this is more the happy accident. Our partner is admissions, so the partner institutions we work with, as part of our delivery at open days and supporting their open day events, it's helped increase their admissions onto access to higher education courses, as well as we're able to funnel people from outside of education onto a course to help them meet entry requirements if they don't already do so. And obviously as well, we've invested quite a bit into research, looking at reports by companies like Alterline we've invested in, and then looked at them on quite a local, regional basis, so we can understand how the information applies in our own context. So we have a really good understanding now of some of the perceived barriers and factors that prevent students from accessing higher education. So again, this is something to bear in mind if you're interested in increasing your provision for mature students, as well as understanding your own regional context, essentially. Norwich attracts, well, we do attract locally quite a few students who will commute onto campus, but of course, Carver and working with Carver has helped us to understand that younger audiences are utilising access qualifications as well. So ensuring that we're talking to the younger population of the mature student audience as well, because over 21 is quite a broad range of ages and backgrounds and everything else that goes with it as well. So as part of my role, I have worked with students pretty much from the minute they arrive at the university onwards, and many of whom have been very keen to give back to students on a similar pathway. So I thought it'd be nice to show you here an example of some resources that we've put together, again, to support people thinking about returning to education or doing an access, or how their access can actually apply and really benefit them when they arrive at university. So here's a video from a second year student, he's now actually in his third year, called Adrian. Adrian studied at one of our partner institutions and is currently the president of our peer support network, so is, you know, a very prominent member of our mature student community. Hopefully you can hear this.
Hi, I'm Adrian. I'm a mature second year student here at UEA studying film and television. The reason I chose this degree is because I completed an access to higher education diploma at my local college, studying humanities, including sociology and cultural studies. I actually found out about access courses from attending an open day at UEA. I attended the session for prospective mature students the year before to see if I could gain entry without level 3 qualification. I've been out of education for so long, I assumed I would need to sit 2 or 3 A levels. I spoke one-to-one to an existing mature student who mentioned, almost in passing, he had completed an access course. I left assuming this was a generic term for alternative paths into uni. I googled it later and I was delighted to discover what it actually entailed. A bespoke set of modules I can do locally within a period of time I needed, and a direct gateway to university, all from a throwaway comment. I took so many skills away with me. One particular module is actually called Study Skills and equips you for everything you will need to know academically in your first and subsequent years. They boasted to me that completing my access course will make the first uni year so much easier, and they were right. I learned how to reference correctly, how to think and write critically, how to structure essays, where to find the correct sources, tips on studying theories, data analysis and presentation skills, and they will also feed back on your input into your seminars as well. There were so many highlights of completing this diploma. I made lifelong friends because of the camaraderie and support we gave each other. I think this stemmed from the fact that we were all choosing to be on this course, and there was no duress like compulsory study would be. This support for others contributed to my being awarded Student of the Year as well. I also have to say the teaching was spot on. There was no judgment, only support and understanding given, whatever the question you may have. Colleagues are patient and usually always available too to give you feedback or encouragement. I met with my provider's careers advisor one-to-one a couple of times and asked her questions via email too. She was actually the person who showed me the path that I'm taking now. As part of your workshops, you will be shown how to apply using UCAS and what each stage means for you. They will help you with your personal statements by giving feedback and helping you choose what to include. Without a doubt, I would recommend an access course to other people. My provider gave me the best encouragement, a high level of teaching, direct, honest, but supportive feedback. But most importantly, they helped me transition into level 4 academia seamlessly. Any fears you may have about coping with that work soon drift away after the first few lessons, and you will find yourself saying, I knew this already, a hell of a lot.
Okay, so in essence, that's the whole video, and I'm aware that I'm sort of running short on my time here. So just to quickly sort of round off this presentation before I hand over to the lovely Rebecca, just to sort of let you know the next steps for our approach. So although our reduced offer is a key part of our offering, it has been the sole reason that students have selected to study with us. And they haven't honestly needed the reduced offer to progress. It's just essentially helped increase the number of applications that we've received, due to obviously the confidence in learners sometimes being an area of development, let's say. This has demonstrated really the importance of us adding value to our partners' existing provision, helping them develop a sense of belonging within UEA or within a university setting, and us being a trusted source of information. So, you know, essentially we do become a destination of interest for some of these students. And the other key thing to sort of bear in mind really is that we are trying to track students that are coming through with our reduced offer and monitoring the engagement throughout the life cycle to ensure that students are prepared and can succeed as part of our reduced offer. This is in the early days at the moment, is a real priority for us to really ramp up in the next year or so. I'll also make a point here as well to say that unfortunately I don't have 2 years worth of retention data to let you know if this has had an impact on the second aspect of the APP target that I have as part of my role. So unfortunately I'm unable to provide much insight in that respect so far, but I'm positive that actually students are feeling a bit more seen and heard on campus, and that's having another real positive impact on our recruitment. So that just leads me to thank you all very much for bearing with me, including the coughing fit and the cold sounding voice. I welcome any questions that you have, and yeah, if you wanted to contact me, that's my email address on screen now.
Brilliant,
thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gemma. As mentioned, so we have a couple of questions from Shmuel, Deborah, I think, and a couple of others. So and Claire as well on there. So what I'll do is, I mentioned earlier, so I'll pass on to Rebecca to try and get as much of the presentations as possible, and then hopefully we'll have about 5 minutes at the end to try and get through as many of the questions as possible.
Thank you very much, Sim, and thanks, Gemma, for a really interesting presentation, and to continue with an East Anglia double bill this morning. I'm Rebecca Middleton. I work as a data and evaluation analyst at the Network for East Anglian Collaborative Outreach, neaco, which is the UniConnect partnership in East Anglia. And I'm going to be looking at what our UniConnect annual survey from last year, 2020, can tell us about adult learners in East Anglia, particularly those in further education colleges. So neaco is a partnership of 5 universities and 9 FE colleges, and you can see our partners there and their logos. So working across the region. And the reason that I undertook this analysis is because during UniConnect Phase 3, which is this academic year, there's been an increased focus on widening participation for mature learners and on further education colleges as well. And so we looked at the following research questions around what the annual survey from last year can tell us about the future plans and attitudes towards higher education of adult and mature learners in FE level courses in East Anglia, recognising that there isn't a universal definition of adult and mature learners in this context, but tending to, for this purpose, I've tended to think about adult learners as being those aged 19 and over, and mature learners as particularly those who are 21 and over. And also looking at whether there are any differences between age groups that might inform our outreach to these groups. In terms of the approach I took, I had a brief review of the literature, that what we already know about particularly mature students, but also any literature there is about outreach to and widening participation amongst these groups. And then I conducted analysis of the survey data that we have and looked at students who reported being in level 2 or 3 in an FE college. And I've produced some descriptive statistics, which you can see in my presentation here. And I also ran some chi-square tests of association to determine whether the differences between age group were statistically significant or not. And I've made notes on the slide so you can see that there. A couple of limitations here, although there are probably others as well that you might think of. We have a reasonably small sample size for these older age groups, 19 and above, because the survey is principally aimed at those aged 13 to 19 years old. And as a result, also the question wording is aimed for those who are the typical school and FE age groups. And so sometimes you'll see that this doesn't always capture the most relevant options for older age groups. So looking a little bit more at how we do the annual survey in East Anglia. So the questions are mostly provided to us by CFE Research, who are the national evaluators of the UniConnect programme, and they look at knowledge and attitudes towards higher education, plans for the future, and from last year, the impact of the pandemic on future plans as well. We conducted our fieldwork from November 2020 to January 2021, so just going into the period when schools were closed early this year. We use our Qualtrics platform to conduct the survey online, and we target years 9 to 13 and colleges level 2 and 3. And you can see these are the locations of the FE colleges that we work with and where the survey took place, as well as the higher education partners that we have as well. So you can see we've got a good spread across the region, but quite a large region as well. And in terms of sample size across the survey, we had just over 12,400 respondents take part in the survey, and the majority of those were under 16, and a large proportion were also 16 to 18, so it's quite small proportions in the older age groups. So looking at this particular analysis, I focused around the 2,487 learners who were aged 16 and over, who were in FE college level 2 or 3. And you can see that that's 212 who were 19 to 20 and 202 who were 21 and over, with the remaining 2,000 or so 16 to 18 year olds. Those who were 21 and over in our survey were more likely to be female than younger age groups. And in terms of level of study, quite a mix across levels 2 and 3. Those aged 19 to 20 were most likely to be in the college level 3 year 2 group. And there was no statistically significant differences in the proportion who would be the first to go on to higher education in their immediate family. So delving into the data itself, and what does it say? If we look at future plans by level of study, looking at those in college level 2, we can see that across the board, getting a full-time job is the most common next plan. But you can see there's a real age profile there where it comes to proportion who want to begin an apprenticeship, with that decreasing amongst the older age groups and other options increasing. These tended to, this may be where our survey doesn't capture all the full complex range of possibilities for those who are in older age groups. And looking at level 3, we can see that studying away from home at university is the most common option across age groups, but this is particularly the case for those who are in 20 and under, whereas those aged 21 and over are much more likely to report the most common option for them was they wanted to go to a local university or higher education institution, with getting a full-time job popular for all age groups as the next step. Looking at higher education intentions, we see that those that we surveyed in older age groups were much more likely to say that they were very likely or definitely will apply to higher education in the future, which is quite a striking difference here. In terms of whether COVID has influenced their decisions about what to do next, we find that those in older age groups are more likely to say that it hasn't made a difference to what they will do next. But on the whole, across the board, around half of respondents said that the pandemic hadn't made a difference. In terms of the main reason to want to go to higher education and those motivations, we see that the most popular option for around half of respondents was to enable them to get a well-paid job. However, it's really interesting to note that for those who were age 19 and over, the enjoyment of learning was a particular motivation that came out more strongly than for younger age groups. Looking at self-reported knowledge of higher education, so how much did respondents feel that they knew about a range of different aspects, for example, cost of study, courses available, financial support. Those who were aged in the older age groups were more likely to report that they knew a lot or a little rather than nothing at all about these aspects of higher education. It's perhaps not surprising given that we know that knowledge is acquired over time, and actually more opportunity for those who are older to have heard about these aspects of higher education. Looking at the barriers to not going to higher education, the main reason across all age groups tended to be wanting to work and earn money. However, we see that for those aged 21 and over, other reasons are important for quite a large proportion. These tended to be, for those who wrote in what those were, it tended to be family, work plans or commitments, health limitations, and these are perhaps not covered in our list of options because they're particularly relevant for those older age groups. We also see a reduction in the proportion of students who said it does not appeal to me with age. So those in the older age categories were least likely to say that higher education does not appeal. Looking at perceived acceptance in higher education, again, we see an interesting picture for those older age groups being more likely to say that higher education is for people like me and that they would fit in well with others. And this is actually contrary to some broader research around higher education and mature students, which I'll come to later. Older age groups are more likely to report motivation to succeed academically, and this is perhaps unsurprising given that they have gone back into studying or continue studying for longer than other age groups. And this is reflected in high levels of motivation reported. They're also particularly likely to believe they could go to university if they wanted to, and that they can get the grades needed for further study as well. And again, this is perhaps challenges existing research around the potential for bad experiences in education to have affected attitudes and expectations. Older age groups more likely to say that they could cope with the level of study required and have the academic ability to succeed. So looking at whether age makes any difference to the perceived value of higher education, we see that in general, older age groups are more likely to see the value of higher education. So to recognise that it will broaden their horizons, give them valuable life skills, enable them to earn more, challenge them intellectually, and enable them to get a better job. However, the differences for improving social life were not statistically significant, and this might be because those who are in the older age categories recognise that higher education might not look quite the same for them in terms of social life and the typical higher education experience. So what does this mean for outreach? Well, I think there's probably a couple of different ways that we could think about this for our outreach in East Anglia. So making sure that we communicate local higher education options to mature and adult learners in further education, making sure they're aware of part-time and flexible options as well. We know that those aged 21 and over are more likely to want to study at a local university than to move away. Excuse me. And therefore they might be more affected by regional cold spots, perhaps in coastal or rural areas as well. And also we know that wanting to work and earn money is an important potential barrier for all age categories as well. And that has the potential to be addressed at least in part by part-time study. Another learning for outreach might be around making sure that we don't only emphasise the financial returns of higher education, but also connect with the passion for learning that adult and mature learners are demonstrating through their responses to the survey. We know that enjoyment of learning was a particularly important reason for going into higher education for those who were aged 20 and over. And they were more likely to assert the value of higher education across a range of different areas. And just finally, in terms of areas for further analysis, so we can see where this survey data has confirmed in some ways and challenged in others the existing literature on perceived barriers to higher education. So, for example, we know from other survey research that financial concerns are a main reason why mature or part-time students end up not going to higher education. And we've also seen from previous recession in 2007 to 2009